You're crouched at the water's edge, your 3-foot 10-inch body trembling from thirst. The African sun beats down mercilessly as you scan the murky shallows. Your oversized jaw aches from dehydration, your primitive brain screaming one simple command: drink. But every instinct in your tiny body, barely 70 pounds soaking wet, tells you this is where death waits. Real quick, if these help you sleep or just chill out, hit like or subscribe. Where's everyone tuning in from? Comment your city and time. Last video had people from Dublin to Dallas, and I spent way too long trying to figure out all the time zones. You've seen it before. Just yesterday, a member of your group vanished in a violent splash, dragged beneath these same waters by jaws powerful enough to snap bone. Crocodilus anthropophagus. The name scientists will give it 2 million years from now translates simply as man-eating crocodile. The irony crushes you, surrounded by water that will kill you if you try to drink it. But you have to drink. Today, there's no option to DoorDash some bottled water to your primitive camp, and every water source within walking distance is patrolled by prehistoric crocodiles that just turned your friend into lunch. Your disproportionately long arms, an evolutionary leftover from your tree-dwelling ancestors, brush the ground as you shift anxiously. Those arms mark you as something between ape and human, caught in evolution's awkward middle. They're perfect for climbing trees, but terrible for throwing spears. Not that you have spears anyway. What you do have is a crude stone chopper, an older one tool that took you hours to craft by smashing one rock against another. The sharp edge might help you process food, but against a 1,000-pound crocodile, may as well be armed with a paper clip. The savannah stretches endlessly around you, a landscape recently transformed by climate change. This used to be dense forest before cooling temperatures turned it to grassland. Your ancestors thrived in trees. You're forced to survive on open ground where everything is trying to kill you. You scan for predators, a constant, exhausting vigil. Your 600 cubic centimeter brain, less than half the size of a modern human's, is nonetheless advanced enough to recognize patterns, remember dangers, anticipate threats. It's your only real advantage out here. Movement in the tall grass freezes your blood. Lion, leopard, saber-toothed cat. The savannah has plenty of predators specializing in hunting primates like you. Your kind isn't the apex predator. You're not even close. You're somewhere in the middle of the food chain. And everything above you is hungry. But thirst overpowers fear. You approach the water on trembling legs, your group spreading out along the bank. Safety in numbers, though against a determined crocodile, numbers mean little. You cup your hands and quickly dip them into the shallows. The water tastes like survival, silty and warm. Your primitive brain floods with relief. But the moment of vulnerability passes without incident. This time. As you back away from the water's edge, heart still racing, another danger presents itself. The glaring sun. Your dark skin offers some protection from UV rays, but heat stroke is a constant threat. Your body hair, thinner than a chimp's but thicker than a modern human's, does little to keep you cool. You follow your group toward a cluster of acacia trees that might provide shade, walking on 2 legs. That evolutionary innovation that freed your hands for tool use still feels somewhat awkward with your slightly bowed legs and broad pelvis, but it's efficient enough to cover ground. The savannah isn't just a backdrop, it's an active participant in your daily struggle. The grasses conceal predators, the ground bakes under the unrelenting sun, the scattered trees offer too little shade and too few escape routes. This environment wasn't designed for creatures like you, barely adapted from forest dwelling. Your brain, though primitive by modern standards, is sophisticated enough to experience fear, constant grinding fear. You live in a perpetual state of fight or flight, adrenaline surging through your system dozens of times daily. This stress would mentally break a modern human within days. For you, it's just life. What you can't possibly understand is that you're living through one of evolution's most crucial experiments. Your species, Homo habilis, represents a pivotal moment when climate pressure forced adaptations that would eventually lead to modern humans. Your slightly larger brain, your tool use, your meat-supplemented diet, all responses to a changing world that's trying to kill you. But evolution isn't concerned with your comfort or survival. It's a blind process caring only about what works, what passes genes forward. And the harsh reality is that most of your kind won't survive long enough to reproduce. The average Homo habilis rarely lives past 30, if they're extraordinarily lucky. As your group moves through the grassland, one of the males spots something in the distance. Circling vultures, the group stops, communicating with primitive vocalizations and gestures. No complex language yet, just urgent sounds and movements that somehow convey meaning. The vultures mean carrion. Carrion means potential food. And food is about to drive you into the next deadly challenge of your day. The gnawing hunger in your belly, a constant companion, compels you forward despite the obvious danger. Your diet is primarily plant-based, but the harsh environment and your energy-hungry brain demand more calories than fruits and tubers can provide. You need meat, marrow, dense nutrition. But you're not a hunter, not even close. You're barely even a competent scavenger. Those Alderaan stone tools you've made, the ones paleontologists will later celebrate as humanity's first technology, are pitifully inadequate for taking down prey. The sharp flakes can cut flesh and the heavier cores can smash bones for marrow, but you have nothing remotely resembling a projectile weapon. Hunting requires getting dangerously close to animals that can easily outrun, outfight, and outkill you. So instead, you scavenge. You take what's left after the real predators have had their fill. Your group moves cautiously toward the vulture swarm. The tall grass makes visibility difficult. You can only see a few feet ahead. Any predator could be lurking, waiting. The males at the front clutch their stone choppers, not as weapons, but as tools to quickly butcher whatever remains they find before bigger scavengers arrive. The smell hits you first, the putrid stench of rotting flesh baking in the African heat. It's revolting but also mouth-watering to your constantly hungry body. As you get closer, you see them, hyenas already at work on what's left of a wildebeest. 4 adults tearing at the carcass, their bone-crushing jaws making short work of parts even lions can't process. Your group freezes. Hyenas aren't just scavengers, they're apex predators in their own right, and a small group of Homo habilis would be easy pickings, but the hunger drives you forward. The older male at the front of your band makes a decision, grabbing a handful of rocks from the ground. What happens next is a survival technique that helped keep your species alive, confrontational scavenging. With primitive screams and thrown rocks, your group rushes the hyenas, creating a chaotic display that momentarily confuses them. It's a massive gamble. If the hyenas stand their ground, you're all dead. Today, it works. The hyenas back off. Just far enough, just long enough for your group to rush in and hack away at the carcass with stone tools. You're not fighting for the choicest cuts. Those are long gone. You're fighting for scraps, for tendons, for bits of meat stuck between ribs, and most importantly, for bones with marrow still inside. This is your fine dining experience as Homo habilis, frantically cutting away pieces of a rotting carcass while keeping one eye on the hyenas circling just 30 feet away, waiting for their chance to counterattack. A modern human, with their larger size and brain, might fashion a spear or organize a more effective group defense. You have none of these advantages. Your tools are basic. Your communication is rudimentary. No complex language, just alarm calls and simple vocalizations. Your planning ability is limited by a brain half the size of your modern descendants. The smell of blood has carried downwind. In the distance, you spot something that makes your primitive heart race. Lions, a pair of males moving toward the commotion. Unlike modern African lions, these are Panthera leo fossilis, larger and more aggressive than their contemporary cousins. Your group has maybe 2 minutes before they arrive. Frantic cutting and scraping intensifies. A female from your group smashes a leg bone between 2 rocks, cracking it open to reveal the fatty marrow inside, a calorie-rich prize that might make this deadly gamble worthwhile. Others grab what they can, strips of meat, smaller bones, anything edible. Then, as quickly as you arrived, your group retreats, clutching your meagre prizes. The hyenas immediately reclaim the carcass, only to find themselves facing the approaching lions. Predator confronts predator while you escape with barely enough food to justify the risk. This is how you eat. This is how you survive. This is why Homo habilis was constantly on the brink of starvation. Your teeth tell the tale of your diet. Isotope analysis of Homo habilis teeth shows you ate some meat, more than earlier hominins, but were still largely plant-dependent. The meat you did get came mostly from scavenging, not hunting. You were essentially a vulture with stone tools. Back at your temporary camp, little more than a cluster of rocks offering minimal protection, your group divides the spoils. There's not enough to go around. There never is. The strongest get first pick, with juveniles and weaker adults getting whatever remains. Social hierarchy isn't just cultural, it's survival. You've made it through another meal without becoming a meal yourself. But the day isn't over, and neither are the dangers. Your share of food is pitiful. A few stringy tendons, a small piece of bone with marrow, a scrap of meat already turning rancid in the heat. Your modern human descendants would gag at the sight and smell, but to you, it's precious calories. You crack the bone between your powerful molars, sucking out the fatty marrow with desperation. The marrow hits your system like a drug. Rich in fat and calories, it feeds your energy-hungry brain. For a brief moment, the constant gnaw of hunger subsides. These are the rewards that drive your species toward more meat consumption, pushing your descendants on a path that will eventually reshape the planet. But your moment of satisfaction is brief. Feeding time has drawn attention. A lone leopard stalks the edge of your group's gathering, yellow eyes calculating, not hungry enough to attack your entire group, but patient enough to wait for a straggler. The ancient game of predator and prey plays out yet again, with you caught somewhere in the middle. This perpetual state of vigilance burns precious calories. Your life is a constant energy equation. Spend calories to get calories, always teetering on the edge of deficit. One unsuccessful day of foraging could be your last. Modern humans talk about living paycheck to paycheck. You live meal to meal, hour to hour. As afternoon wears on, the group spreads out to forage. This is your daily routine. Constant movement, constant searching, constant risk assessment. You dig for tubers with a sharpened stick, occasionally finding edible roots. You pick berries, check for bird eggs, strip bark, collect insects. Anything to supplement your scavenged meat. Your hands, so much like yet unlike those of modern humans, work with surprising dexterity. Your curved fingers and opposable thumbs allow you to manipulate objects with precision, a critical adaptation for tool use. But the structure of your wrist and arm lacks the refined mobility modern humans take for granted. Using stone tools requires more effort, more focus. The African sun begins its slow descent. Temperature drops from unbearable to merely uncomfortable. Your group gravitates back together, an instinctive response to increasing predator activity at dusk. Your temporary territory, no more than a few square miles, must contain everything you need to survive. Travel too far and you risk encountering rival hominin groups or unfamiliar predators. Competition isn't just from lions and hyenas. Other hominins, perhaps Paranthropus boisei with their massive jaws specialized for tough vegetation, or even early Homo erectus with their slightly more advanced tools, vie for the same resources. The fossil record shows multiple hominin species coexisting in this time and place, each carving out their own survival niche. Your group encounters another band of hominins at a distance, taller, more upright, moving with greater efficiency. Early Homo erectus, though you have no name for them. Something about them fills you with instinctive unease. In the brutal calculus of evolution, they represent your replacement, but you don't know that yet. You give them wide berth. They have better tools, better weapons, better brains. In the story of human evolution, they're the future, you're the past. But the present is all that matters when survival hangs by a thread. As evening approaches, your group must make another critical decision: where to sleep. Modern humans take shelter for granted. Homo habilis had no permanent shelter, no caves in this environment, no structures beyond the simplest arrangements of stones that might have supported crude brush windbreaks. Sleeping on the ground meant being vulnerable to every nocturnal predator. Sleeping in trees was safer from some threats, but required finding suitable trees, increasingly rare in the savanna environment, and still left you exposed to leopards, which hunt in trees with ease. Your group chooses a cluster of acacia trees. Their thorny branches offer some protection, and a few members climb into the lower limbs. Others remain on the ground, huddled together, taking turns staying awake to watch for danger. The coming night brings a whole new spectrum of threats. While your daytime predators rely on sight, nocturnal hunters track by sound and smell. Your senses are sharper than modern humans, adapted for constant threat detection, but still inadequate against specialized night hunters. Darkness falls quickly near the equator. No gradual twilight, just the sudden absence of sun. The savanna transforms around you. Different sounds, different movements, different dangers. The grass rustles with small nocturnal creatures. The air fills with insect noises. And somewhere out there, predators begin their nightly hunt. You huddle against the trunk of an acacia, your stone tools kept close. They're your only technology, your only advantage, and a limited one at that. The oldest Alderwan tools date back 2.6 million years, predating even Homo habilis. These simple chopping tools and flakes represent the first great leap in human technology, yet they seem pathetically inadequate against the specialized hunting adaptations of your predators. Sleep comes in short, restless bursts. Your primitive brain never fully relaxes, always alert to the sounds of potential death approaching. This chronic stress, this constant vigilance would burn out a modern human in days. For Homo habilis, it's just life. A disturbance in the darkness jerks you fully awake. Something large is moving through the grass nearby. Your group tenses, some grabbing stones, others climbing higher into the trees. A series of low grunts confirms your fears. Hyenas hunting as a pack. Hyenas in the modern world are often mischaracterized as mere scavengers. In your world, they're apex predators, capable of taking down prey larger than themselves through coordinated pack hunting. And they have no fear of hominins. The pack circles your group's position, testing for weakness. Their eyesight in darkness far exceeds yours. Their jaws can crush bones that your stone tools struggle to crack. Their coordinated hunting strategies evolved over millions of years, while your group's defensive tactics are primitive at best. One of your group members makes a mistake. A young male separated slightly from the others. The hyenas sense the opportunity and charge. What happens next is swift, brutal, and all too common in your world. Screams echo across the savannah, then silence. The remaining Homo habilis cluster tighter together, hearts pounding in tiny chests. The night seems to press in around you, alive with threats your limited senses can barely detect. You've survived, again, for now. Dawn breaks with an explosion of colour across the eastern horizon. You've made it through another night, something not every member of your group can say. The loss is acknowledged with simple vocalizations, primitive gestures, no burial, no ceremony. In the harsh economy of survival, the dead are simply gone, their remains quickly reclaimed by the environment. Your surviving group members look haggard, exhausted from the interrupted sleep and constant vigilance. Several show signs of illness, skin hot to the touch, breathing laboured. Without modern medicine, without even the most basic understanding of disease, there's nothing to be done except hope they recover on their own. Disease was another constant companion of early hominins, parasites from contaminated water and meat, infections from even minor wounds, malaria, dysentery, tuberculosis. The list of potential killers is endless, and your immune system, while robust against familiar threats, has no defense against new pathogens. One of your sick group mates won't last the day. You can see it in their glazed eyes, their shallow breathing. In the brutal arithmetic of survival, they've become a liability, consuming resources, slowing movement, potentially attracting predators. Some early hominin groups might have abandoned their sick. Others, displaying the beginnings of the social bonds that would later define humanity, stayed with them until the end. Your group chooses to stay, at least for now. It's a decision that reflects something uniquely human emerging in these primitive ancestors. Compassion, even when it comes at a survival cost. By midday, the sick member has died. There's no ceremony, no burial, no ritual to mark their passing. Their body will be left behind when the group moves on, soon to become part of the food chain they once participated in. The constant presence of death was a fundamental reality for Homo habilis. The fossil record suggests few lived beyond 30-35 years, with many dying much younger. Child mortality was staggeringly high. Disease, predation, accidents, starvation, dehydration, hypothermia. The ways to die were innumerable. The ways to prevent death, few. As your group prepares to move on in search of water, that eternal deadly necessity, you face the same gauntlet of dangers that killed your companions. There's no respite, no safe zone, no moment when vigilance can lapse, and on the horizon a new threat looms. Dark clouds gathering, promising a tropical downpour. Rain means drinking water, but also flooding. Lightning, exposure. In your world, even the weather is a predator. The day stretches ahead, filled with the same desperate challenges. Find food, avoid becoming food, secure water, find shelter, all while navigating a landscape designed to kill you. And tomorrow will bring the same, and the day after, and every day of your short, brutal existence. This is why you wouldn't survive a day as Homo habilis. Not just because of the predators, though they're reason enough, not just because of disease or the elements, but because the entire existence of this early hominin was a constant, unrelenting struggle against forces overwhelmingly stacked against them. The clouds roll in faster than expected, turning the afternoon sky an ominous grey-green. Your group moves urgently now, abandoning the body of your fallen companion without ceremony. The dead return to the earth. The living must keep moving. Rain in the African savanna isn't the gentle shower modern humans might imagine. It's a violent assault, walls of water that flatten grass, turn dirt to mud, and create instant flooding in low-lying areas. For creatures without permanent shelter, it's another deadly challenge in an already lethal day. Your group seeks higher ground as the first massive drops begin to fall. Within minutes you're drenched, your body hair plastered to your skin, offering no warmth or protection. The temperature, previously scorching, drops rapidly. Your small frame begins to shiver, your primitive body struggling to maintain core temperature. Lightning splits the sky, followed by thunder that physically shakes the ground beneath your feet. The savanna animals scatter, predator and prey alike, seeking shelter from the elemental onslaught. Even lions and hyenas retreat from this threat, but your group has nowhere to go. No caves, no structures. Just the scant shelter of a rocky overhang that barely accommodates half your number. The others huddle together, using collective body heat to fight off the creeping chill. Water courses down your face, into your eyes, limiting visibility to a few feet. The noise of the downpour drowns out the warning sounds you rely on to detect predators. You're effectively blind and deaf in an environment where sensory awareness means survival. This is when you're most vulnerable. A leopard, willing to endure the rain for an easy meal, could take any one of you without warning. The sound of your death wouldn't carry beyond the drumming of rain on hard-packed earth. But there's unexpected bounty in this misery. Small animals, flushed from burrows by rising water, scurry past in panic. Your group's quickest member snags a rodent, smashing its head with a rock. Another grabs a lizard. Small prey, but precious protein. The storm has delivered an unexpected feast. As suddenly as it began, the deluge subsides, leaving behind a transformed landscape. Water pools in depressions, temporary oases that will attract both prey and predator alike. Steam rises from the sun-baked earth, creating a misty haze that further reduces visibility. Your group's vocalizations change, communicating something between relief and renewed vigilance. Your limited vocabulary, perhaps a few dozen distinct sounds, can't express complex thoughts, but it's sufficient to coordinate basic group movements and signal danger. This primitive language represents another crucial evolutionary step. Though far from the complex syntax of modern humans, your communication is more sophisticated than that of great apes. It enables coordination during scavenging, warnings about predators, and rudimentary social bonding, all critical for survival. The rain has left you cold, wet, and more vulnerable, but it's delivered something precious, drinking water that doesn't require approaching dangerous rivers or waterholes. Your group drinks from leaf cups and ground depressions, temporarily relieving the constant thirst that drives so much of your daily risk-taking. As the sun begins its final descent, your group faces the night's greatest challenge, finding safe sleeping grounds. The rain has eliminated many options. Trees are slippery and dangerous. Ground depressions that might have offered concealment are now puddles. The landscape offers little protection from nocturnal hunters. You settle for a rocky area where exposed boulders create a natural barrier on 3 sides. It's not ideal, but it provides some protection and visibility of approaching threats. Your group arranges itself in a defensive formation, younger, stronger members on the perimeter, the very young and old at the center. Darkness falls like a heavy blanket, absolute and disorienting. No artificial light exists in your world. The moon, partially obscured by lingering clouds, offers minimal illumination. Your night vision, better than modern humans but inferior to specialized nocturnal predators, strains to make sense of shadowy movements in the distance. The night brings a shift in the predator population. Dinophilis, sometimes called false saber-toothed cats, begin their hunt. Unlike modern big cats, these specialized primate hunters have evolved specifically to prey on creatures like you. Their teeth and jaws are perfectly adapted to crush hominin skulls. Paleontologists will later find Homo habilis skulls bearing the distinctive puncture marks of these night hunters. Hyenas vocalize in the distance, their whooping calls sending chills through your primitive brain. But it's the sounds you don't hear that terrify you most. The silent stalk of leopards, the careful positioning of saber-toothed cats preparing an ambush. Your group takes turns keeping watch, but exhaustion makes vigilance difficult. After a day of constant movement, food gathering, predator avoidance, and the stress of losing a group member, your bodies crave rest, but deep sleep means death in this environment. You drift in and out of consciousness, your brain never fully disengaging from threat assessment. This form of sleep, light, interrupted, vigilant, is profoundly different from the deep, restorative sleep modern humans require for cognitive function. Your dreams are simple, threat-focused, your sleeping brain rehearsing escape scenarios rather than processing complex emotions. A sound jolts you fully awake, a low, rumbling growl just beyond your perimeter. Eyes strain to penetrate the darkness. Silhouettes shift against the night sky. Something large is circling your group. The oldest male in your group makes a decision, grabbing a handful of small stones and hurling them toward the sound. Others join in, creating a barrage of projectiles accompanied by threatening vocalizations. It's a desperate defense against an unseen threat. The noise and activity is enough to deter whatever stalked your perimeter, for now, but the interruption has cost precious sleep time and burned energy you can't easily replace. Each nocturnal confrontation weakens your group incrementally, pushing you closer to the threshold, where exhaustion overcomes survival instinct. This is how predators often take hominin prey, not in dramatic daylight confrontations, but during moments of weakness when sleep deprivation and calorie deficit have dulled reactions and judgment. Around midnight, the clouds finally clear, revealing a sky blazing with stars. Without light pollution, the night sky of 2 million years ago was dramatically brighter than what modern humans experience, a canopy of light stretching horizon to horizon. Your primitive brain registers this beauty but lacks the cognitive framework to contemplate it abstractly. Your relationship with the natural world is immediate and survival-focused. The stars are useful for tracking seasonal changes, but their aesthetic quality is beyond your limited consciousness. Another sound breaks the night. Not a predator this time, but distress from within your own group. One of the juveniles has developed a fever, their small body radiating alarming heat. Disease moves swiftly through groups like yours, transmitted through shared food, water, and close contact. Simple infections that modern medicine would easily cure are death sentences in your world. A small cut from butchering meat, contaminated water, parasites from undercooked food, any could introduce pathogens your immune system can't fight. The sick juvenile's mother tends to them as best she can, using primitive care techniques, cooling with wet leaves, offering water, but without understanding germ theory, without basic medications. These interventions rarely succeed against serious illness. The group shifts uncomfortably. Illness creates another impossible choice. Stay together and risk more infections, or abandon the vulnerable and lose valuable group members. Your species' emerging capacity for compassion conflicts with ruthless survival imperatives. This tension between individual survival and group cohesion represents another critical evolutionary pivot point. Groups that maintained stronger social bonds could share resources, defend collectively against predators, and care for injured members until they recovered. Those that didn't were gradually outcompeted. Hours pass. The juvenile's condition worsens. Their laboured breathing is audible in the quiet night, potentially attracting predators drawn to weakness. Two group members move closer, offering body heat and comfort, a proto-human response that foreshadows the complex social structures of future hominins. Around 3 a.m., a new threat emerges, not predators but competition, another hominin group moving through your territory. Their silhouettes are similar to yours, but their vocalizations are different. Perhaps Paranthropus or early Homo erectus, they represent both potential danger and opportunity. Violence between hominin groups was likely common, driven by competition for limited resources, but so was intergroup mating, an essential mechanism for genetic diversity. The fossil record shows evidence of both conflict and coexistence between contemporary hominin species. Your group leader makes a critical decision using specific vocalizations to signal non-aggression while maintaining territorial boundaries. The other group responds in kind, maintaining distance but not initiating conflict. This rudimentary diplomacy represents the earliest forms of intergroup politics. The rival group moves on, disappearing into the darkness. Tension subsides, but precious sleep time has been lost again. Exhaustion deepens, dulling reactions and clouding judgment. A dangerous state in a predator-rich environment. The last hours before dawn are often the most dangerous. Nocturnal hunters make final attempts to secure prey before retreating for the day. Your group's vigilance has deterred most threats so far, but as exhaustion sets in, vulnerability increases. A distant roar signals another predator on the move, perhaps a lion or saber-toothed cat returning from a successful hunt. Your group tightens formation instinctively, each member fully alert despite exhaustion. The sick juvenile has finally fallen into fitful sleep, their fever seemingly breaking. It's an unexpected victory in a world where illness usually means death. Perhaps they'll survive to see another day, though many nights like this one still lie ahead before they reach reproductive age. First light appears on the eastern horizon, not yet sunrise, but the promise of it. The most dangerous part of the night is ending. Nocturnal predators will soon retreat to their daytime hiding places. Your group has survived another night, though not without cost. The juvenile who fell ill during the night shows improvement but remains weak. Another group member displays the first symptoms of the same illness, a reminder that contagion spreads quickly in your close-knit band. Dawn brings a brief moment of relative safety, the transition period when night hunters have retreated but day hunters aren't yet fully active. Your group uses this window to relocate, seeking better territory after the previous day's losses. Movement helps warm stiff, cold bodies. The morning air is cool, but not dangerously so. Dew collects on grass and leaves, providing another precious opportunity to drink without risking predator encounters at waterholes. Your group's morning vocalizations increase, coordinating movement and expressing relief at surviving the night. These sound patterns, though not language in the modern sense, perform crucial social functions, reinforcing bonds and establishing the day's priorities. As the sun finally crests the horizon, bathing the savannah in golden light, your group begins another day of the same desperate challenges. Find food, avoid becoming food, secure water, find shelter. The cycle continues, relentless and unforgiving. This is why you wouldn't survive a day as Homo habilis. The night alone would break you. The constant vigilance, the interrupted sleep, the predators that hunt specialized in killing your kind, the diseases without treatment, the exposure to elements without adequate shelter. Modern humans, with their technology, their medicine, their permanent dwellings, have forgotten what it means to be prey. They've forgotten the bone-deep terror of knowing something bigger and stronger is hunting them in the darkness. They've forgotten what it's like to be halfway down the food chain, not at the top. Homo habilis remembered. They lived it every night. Morning brings no relief, just different dangers. The sun, once your ally against nocturnal predators, quickly becomes another enemy. By mid-morning, heat bakes the savannah, the temperature climbing toward 100 degrees. Sweat beads on your prominent brow ridge, your dark skin offering some protection from UV rays that would fry a modern human in hours. Your group moves with purpose now, heading toward a distant tree line where both shade and potential food sources await. Walking upright, that revolutionary adaptation that freed your hands for tool use, still comes with costs. Your frame isn't perfectly adapted for bipedalism yet. Your spine, knees, and feet bear weight in ways evolution hasn't fully optimized, creating chronic pain your species simply endures. You're thirsty again, always thirsty. The morning dew provided minimal relief, but now your body craves substantial hydration. The nearest reliable water source is a small stream feeding into the larger river, still dangerous, but less so than the crocodile-infested main channel. But first, food. Always food. Your energy-hungry brain demands constant caloric input. A quarter of your metabolic resources go to feeding that brain. Smaller than a modern human's, but significantly larger than your Australopithecine ancestors. This is the devil's bargain of human evolution. Larger brains require more energy, creating ever-increasing pressure to secure calorie-dense foods. One of your group spots a termite mound triggering immediate action. Termites represent a protein jackpot, easily gathered and nutritionally rich. You lack the sophisticated termite fishing tools later hominins will develop, but you have something nearly as effective, a simple stick. You jam the stick into air holes in the mound, agitating the colony. When you withdraw it, it's covered with angry termites. You quickly sweep them into your mouth with your free hand. The taste is earthy, slightly sour. Their tiny bodies crunch between your molars. Modern humans might recoil at eating live insects, but your palate has no such arbitrary restrictions. Food is food. The group works the termite mound systematically, each member taking turns, but the bounty is limited, enough to take the edge off hunger, not enough to satisfy. The constant search for calories continues. Movement in the distance catches your eye, a group of Homo erectus moving with confident strides across the open savannah. They're taller than your kind, their bodies more efficiently adapted for bipedal walking. Their tools, glimpsed even from this distance, appear more sophisticated than your simple Oldowan implements. These are your evolutionary cousins, but also your competition and potential replacements. Homo erectus emerged around 2 million years ago and will eventually spread across Africa, Asia, and Europe. Their superior adaptations, better tools, more efficient bodies, larger brains represent the next step in human evolution. Your kind, Homo habilis, is evolutionary middle management, an important but ultimately transitional form. Your group gives them wide berth. Direct confrontation would be disastrous. They outmatch you physically and technologically, but this detour costs you time and energy, pushing you further from water sources and potential food. The sun climbs higher. Heat distortion shimmers across the savanna. The temperature approaches the limit of what your body can tolerate without shelter. Modern humans, with their more efficient sweating mechanisms and reduced body hair, manage heat better than you. Your thermoregulation sits awkwardly between ape and human, better than chimps at cooling down, worse than modern Homo sapiens. One of your group, an older male, begins to show signs of heat exhaustion. His movements slow, his skin flushes, his breathing becomes laboured. Without intervention, heat stroke will kill him within hours. There's no emergency medical response in your world, no IV fluids, no air conditioning. Your group's only option is to find shade and water quickly. You change course, heading toward a rocky outcropping that might offer some shelter from the merciless sun. The detour is dangerous. It takes you away from known territory into an area where unfamiliar predators might wait. But the alternative is watching a group member die slowly from hypothermia. A thin trickle of water emerges from between rocks at the outcropping's base, not enough to sustain your group long term, but sufficient for immediate needs. The sick male drinks first, others taking turns. The water is warm, slightly silty, potentially parasite-laden, but it's wet, and that's all that matters. The shade temperature is still brutally hot, but just manageable. Your group will be trapped here through the worst heat of the day, burning daylight hours that could have been used for foraging. Every decision in your world involves impossible trade-offs: safety versus food, water versus predator exposure, rest versus progress. While the group rests, you maintain vigilance. Predators know that prey animals gather at water sources during the heat of the day. Lions sometimes hunt during these hours, ambushing heat-exhausted prey when their reactions are slowest. The fossil record tells this story with grim eloquence. Homo habilis remains often show evidence of predator damage, tooth marks from big cats, hyenas, and crocodiles. Many fossils bear signs of having passed through digestive systems. For every Homo habilis specimen discovered by paleoanthropologists, thousands more ended up as predator meals, leaving no trace for future scientists to find. As you scan for threats, you notice something disturbing: dark clouds of insects gathering around stagnant pools near your shelter. Mosquitoes and tsetse flies, vectors for diseases that have shaped human evolution as powerfully as any predator. Malaria, sleeping sickness, and countless other insect-borne pathogens kill hominins in numbers that rival even the most efficient carnivores. You have no insect repellent, no screened shelters, no anti-malarial drugs. Your only defense is swatting, relocating, or enduring. Your group chooses to endure. The heat threat outweighs the disease risk, at least in the immediate term. The older male's condition improves somewhat in the shade, but he remains weakened. In your harsh world, this creates another impossible choice. Slowing the group's pace to accommodate him increases everyone's vulnerability. Abandoning him is more immediately efficient, but weakens social bonds that provide critical collective survival advantages. Your species sits at an evolutionary inflection point between individual survival and group cooperation. The emergence of compassion, caring for the sick, sharing food, protecting the vulnerable, isn't just moral development, it's an adaptive strategy that ultimately proves more successful than pure self-interest. Your group waits out the worst heat, using the forced downtime to maintain tools. Stone edges dull quickly with use and must be regularly resharpened by napping off new flakes. This creates distinctive wear patterns that archaeologists will use millions of years later to reconstruct how your tools were used. The technology seems primitive by modern standards, just rocks broken in specific ways to create cutting or scraping edges, but the cognitive leap required to conceptualize turning one object into another represents a profound shift in mental capability. Your ability to imagine a stone as a potential tool to visualize the finished product before beginning work separates you from even the most intelligent non-human primates. Mid-afternoon brings slightly cooler temperatures and a decision point. Staying at this location overnight is risky. The water source will attract predators after dark. Moving means exposing the still weakened group member to heat and exertion. After primitive vocalizations and gestures that constitute your species' decision-making process, the group chooses to move on. Progress is slow, the group's pace dictated by its weakest member. This is the reality of social species. You move at the speed of your most vulnerable. Modern militaries operate on the same principle, their pace set by the slowest unit rather than the fastest individual. The detour and delay have cost precious foraging time. Your group will need to find food quickly before sunset or face a hungry night, further depleting already marginal energy reserves. The constant caloric deficit you operate under would be considered a medical emergency for modern humans. For you, it's baseline existence. Your path takes you through unfamiliar territory, increasing anxiety. Each group member scrutinizes the environment with heightened attention. New areas mean unknown predator patterns, unfamiliar terrain features, uncertain food sources. Your primitive brain, though smaller than modern humans, is exquisitely tuned to detect environmental anomalies that might signal danger. A scream pierces the air, short, cut off abruptly. One of your group members, a young female who had moved slightly ahead, has vanished. No blood, no signs of struggle, just absence where a person should be. The group freezes, scanning frantically. Movement in the tall grass reveals her fate, a leopard dragging her body toward a nearby tree. These ambush predators kill with a powerful bite to the neck or skull, often severing the spinal cord instantly. She likely never saw what hit her. Your group's response is immediate but futile. Screams, thrown rocks, aggressive displays. The leopard, already secure in its kill, simply accelerates its retreat. Within moments, both predator and victim disappear from view. The group's vocalizations shift from aggressive to mournful. Not grief in the complex human sense, but recognition of loss, of diminished collective security. Another member gone, another reminder of your species' vulnerability in this unforgiving landscape. There's no attempt to recover the body. The leopard will cache its prey in a tree, out of reach of other predators, and your limited climbing abilities. The group has no choice but to move on, their pace quickening with renewed awareness of the dangers surrounding them. This loss carries practical consequences beyond emotional impact. Your social group now has one fewer set of eyes watching for danger, one fewer individual to participate in confrontational scavenging, one fewer member to contribute to collective defense. Each death incrementally weakens the group's survival prospects. The sun begins its descent toward the western horizon. Evening brings cooler temperatures but increasing predator activity. Your group needs to secure both food and defensible sleeping position before darkness falls, competing imperatives that often conflict. Luck turns in your favor as the group encounters a recently abandoned leopard kill, a small antelope partially consumed but with significant meat remaining. The leopard, likely the same one that took your group member, has eaten its fill and left temporarily, planning to return later. This is your opportunity, a rare chance to scavenge meat without confronting the predator that killed it. Your group moves quickly, stone tools flashing in the late afternoon sun as you cut away chunks of flesh. There's no time for delicacy or complete butchering. You take what you can, quickly, constantly scanning for the leopard's return. Within minutes, you've secured several pounds of meat, a significant caloric windfall. The group retreats to a safer distance to consume this unexpected bounty. The meat is fresh, easier to digest than the rotting carrion you often subsist on. Your powerful jaws and robust teeth make short work of sinew and gristle that would challenge modern humans. This lucky break means your group will sleep with full bellies tonight, a rare luxury in your precarious existence. But the day's losses still outweigh its gains. One group member dead, another weakened, valuable time lost, unfamiliar territory to navigate. The ledger of survival remains deeply in deficit. As the sun touches the horizon, your group seeks defensible sleeping ground. You settle on a rocky area with good visibility and minimal approach routes. Some members gather thorny branches to create a primitive barrier, not enough to stop a determined predator, but sufficient to prevent silent approach. The weakened older male has improved somewhat but remains vulnerable. The group positions him centrally, where he'll have maximum protection overnight. This simple act reflects emerging social structures that will eventually blossom into human society. Care for the vulnerable, recognition of mutual dependence, sacrifice for collective benefit. Sunset fades to twilight. The savannah transforms again. Diurnal creatures seeking shelter as nocturnal hunters emerge. The familiar anxiety returns. Another night of interrupted sleep, constant vigilance, and the knowledge that predators specifically adapted to hunting your kind are actively searching for you. Your group arranges itself in the now familiar defensive formation. Those keeping first watch position themselves at the perimeter, while others seek what rest they can. Tomorrow will bring the same challenges: food, water, predator avoidance, with no respite, no safer season, no technological solution just around the corner. This is why you wouldn't survive a day as Homo habilis. The physical demands alone would break a modern human body. The psychological pressure, constant vigilance, perpetual threat assessment, the witnessed deaths of group members would shatter a modern human mind. The environmental challenges, heat, predators, disease, starvation, would overwhelm modern human coping mechanisms. You are witnessing evolution in real time, your species caught in the brutal crucible that will eventually produce modern humans. Every adaptation, every incremental change that improves survival chances is desperately needed and immediately tested. There are no neutral traits in this environment, no evolutionary luxuries. Everything is shaped by immediate survival pressure. As darkness claims the landscape, you face the night with the same primitive courage that characterizes your entire existence. You have survived another day, barely, at great cost, with no guarantee of seeing tomorrow's dawn. But in that survival, however marginal, lies the future of humanity. Modern humans have forgotten what it means to be prey. You haven't. You can't. It defines your every moment. Night passes in the same vigilant half-sleep that defines your existence. Dawn breaks, revealing your group intact. No losses overnight, a small victory in your constant battle for survival. The weakened male shows further improvement, though he remains vulnerable. Another day begins in the endless cycle of your Homo habilis life. But this day holds something different, something that embodies the brutal mathematics of evolution, the reason your kind exists at all despite overwhelming odds against survival. A female in your group has gone into labor. Birth represents both promise and peril for your species. Reproduction is the only evolutionary success that matters, surviving long enough to pass genes to the next generation. But for Homo habilis, birth is extraordinarily dangerous for both mother and child. Your species exists at an anatomical crossroads, larger brains than your Australopithecine ancestors, but still smaller than later Homo species. Even so, these enlarged brains already create a dangerous childbirth dilemma. Your females have pelvises transitioning toward the modern human form, but not yet fully adapted for delivering larger-brained infants. The labouring female separates slightly from the group, attended by two others. There's no privacy in the modern human sense, but there is a primitive recognition that birth makes both mother and child vulnerable to predators. The others position themselves to provide protection and vigilance. Unlike modern humans, there are no midwives, no birth plans, no medical interventions. Birth happens or it doesn't. Mother and child survive or they don't. The brutal calculus of natural selection plays out with each contraction. The rest of the group continues foraging but remains closer than usual, aware of the increased vulnerability. Primitive vocalizations occasionally pass between the birthing party and the main group, simple status updates that predators could easily misinterpret as distress calls. Hours pass. The sun climbs toward its zenith. The sounds from the birthing female intensify, then suddenly stop. The group tenses, waiting. Then comes a new sound, the thin cry of a newborn hominin announcing its arrival in a world actively trying to kill it. This moment, this seemingly ordinary birth, encapsulates why your species matters in the grand evolutionary story. That crying infant represents a pivotal chapter in human development. Its brain is larger than its Australopithecine ancestors. Its hands are more dexterous. Its eventual upright posture will be more efficient. Each small improvement represents thousands of generations of incremental adaptation. But the odds against this infant's survival are staggering. Data painstakingly reconstructed from fossil records suggests that perhaps 50% of Homo habilis children died before reaching reproductive age. Those who survived childhood rarely lived beyond 30-35 years, and most died much younger. The mother rejoins the group within hours, the newborn clutched to her chest. Unlike later humans, Homo habilis infants are more developed at birth, able to cling to their mothers and slightly less helpless than modern human babies. This adaptation allows females to remain mobile and productive immediately after birth, a critical survival advantage in your dangerous world. But that relative precocity comes with trade-offs. The infant's brain, though larger than earlier hominins, has less capacity for post-birth development than later Homo species will have. Your kind represents an evolutionary middle ground, smarter than your ancestors, but less intellectually flexible than your descendants. The group's behavior changes subtly with the infant's arrival. Movements become more cautious, foraging patterns more conservative. A newborn can't be hushed when hungry or frightened, creating additional predator attraction. Its cries carry across the savannah, signaling vulnerability to every hunter within earshot. Modern humans, with their extended families and social support systems, distribute childcare responsibilities widely. Your group shows primitive versions of this behavior, other females occasionally carrying the infant, males positioning themselves to provide protection. These nascent social structures presage the complex cooperative childcare that will become a hallmark of later human societies. By midday, your group has secured modest food, some tubers dug from the ground, insects harvested from a dead log, fruits gathered from scattered bushes. The nursing mother receives preferential access, her caloric needs elevated by milk production. This simple food sharing represents another evolutionary adaptation that will prove critical to human success, recognition that individual survival depends on group survival. The day progresses without major incident, unusual good fortune in your precarious existence, but good fortune never lasts in the world of Homo habilis. As afternoon fades toward evening, your group encounters another band of hominins moving through the territory. These aren't your species. They stand taller, more fully upright. Their tools appear more sophisticated. Early Homo erectus, though you have no name for them, they represent your evolutionary future and your species' eventual replacement. Encounters between different hominin species likely ranged from violent conflict to peaceful coexistence, with countless variations between. The fossil record shows evidence of both competition and occasional interbreeding between contemporary hominin species. This encounter falls somewhere in the middle. Your groups maintain distance, watching each other warily. No immediate aggression, but no friendly overtures either. The infant's presence makes your group especially cautious. Infanticide was likely a real threat when different hominin bands met. The Homo erectus group eventually moves on, disappearing into the savanna grass, but their brief appearance highlights another evolutionary reality. Your species isn't the endpoint of human development. You're a transitional form, a crucial link in the chain, but ultimately a branch that will be pruned from the evolutionary tree. This knowledge wasn't available to actual Homo habilis, of course. Your simple consciousness lacks the capacity for that level of abstract thought, but from our perspective, 2 million years later, we can see your species' vital role in the greater human story. You were the bridge between ape and human, not fully either, but containing elements of both. Your slightly enlarged brain, your primitive tool use, your social structures, your adaptability to changing environments, all represented crucial evolutionary experiments that would be refined in later Homo species. As evening approaches, your group secures another night's shelter, a different rocky outcrop offering similar defensive advantages to previous nights. The newborn adds complexity to the sleeping arrangements. Its mother positions herself centrally, with the group's strongest members forming a protective perimeter around her. This simple reconfiguration reflects something profound, the beginning of social structures designed specifically to protect the vulnerable. Later human societies will institutionalize this behavior in ever more complex ways, but its roots lie here in the instinctive protection of infants by the broader social group. Night falls. Predators begin their hunts. Your group maintains its vigilant half-sleep, even more alert with a newborn in their midst. The infant feeds frequently through the night, its cries quickly hushed by its mother's response. Each sound represents a potential attraction for predators sensitive to the noises of vulnerable prey. The fossil record tells us that many Homo habilis infants never survived their first year. Disease, predation, accidental injury, exposure, malnutrition, the list of threats was endless, and your species had few defenses against most of them. Each child that reached adulthood represented a statistical anomaly, a triumph against overwhelming odds. Yet enough survived to maintain the species for hundreds of thousands of years, long enough to give rise to more advanced forms that would eventually lead to modern humans. This tenacity, this ability to persist despite everything a hostile world could throw at your kind, represents perhaps your species' most important contribution to human evolution. Dawn breaks on another day. The infant has survived its first 24 hours, a minor miracle in itself. The group begins another cycle of foraging, predator avoidance, and the constant search for water and safety. This daily pattern, repeated countless times over hundreds of thousands of years, slowly shaped your species. Each day, each survival decision, each successful reproduction represented another tiny step in the long journey from Australopithecine to modern human. The evolutionary pressures that moulded Homo habilis were relentless and multi-directional. Climate change pushed your ancestors from forest to savanna, requiring new adaptations for open country survival. Predator pressure selected for better threat detection, more effective group defense, improved communication. Competition for food resources drove the development of more sophisticated tools and cooperation. Each pressure nudged your species incrementally toward becoming more human, less ape. Larger brains, more dexterous hands, more efficient bipedalism, more complex social structures, all emerged not through grand evolutionary leaps but through countless tiny adaptations, each providing some marginal survival advantage. This is evolution's secret. It has no plan, no direction, only the blind mechanism of natural selection acting on random variations. Features that improve survival and reproduction persist and spread. Those that don't are ruthlessly culled from the gene pool. You wouldn't survive a day as Homo habilis because you've lost the adaptations that made their survival possible. Your modern body lacks their robust frame, their powerful jaws, their heat-adapted metabolism. Your modern mind, though vastly more sophisticated in abstract thinking, lacks their hyper-focused threat detection, their intuitive understanding of predator behavior, their innate knowledge of which plants are edible. Yet everything that makes you human began with them. Your tool use, your social cooperation, your language, your problem solving, all have their roots in the adaptations that allowed Homo habilis to survive against impossible odds. The infant born into your group faces a future we can reconstruct only through fossil evidence and evolutionary theory. If it survives, a massive if, it might live 30 years at most. During that time, it will experience the same daily struggle you've witnessed. Constant hunger, thirst, predator avoidance, and the search for safety. It will watch group members die from causes that modern humans would consider easily preventable. It will develop calluses on its hands from making and using stone tools. Its teeth will wear down from chewing tough, uncooked foods. But it might also reproduce, passing its genes, with whatever tiny advantageous mutations they contain, to the next generation, and that generation might produce children with slightly larger brains, slightly more dexterous hands, slightly more efficient bipedal locomotion. These incremental changes, accumulated over thousands of generations, would eventually produce Homo erectus, then archaic Homo sapiens, then anatomically modern humans. This is your species' legacy, not your individual survival, which was always unlikely, but your role in the greater human story. You were the bridge, the crucial link between ape and human. Without Homo habilis, modern humans wouldn't exist. As the morning unfolds and your group begins another day of the same desperate challenges, there's a certain dignity in your struggle. You didn't choose this existence. You didn't understand your evolutionary significance. You simply did what all living things do. You survived as best you could with the adaptations available to you. Modern humans, with their technology, their medicine, their agriculture, and their climate-controlled environments, have created a world almost unrecognizable from yours. They've moved from being prey to being the planet's apex predator. They've developed intellectual capacities far beyond what your 600cc brain could comprehend.